Broadcasting worldwide through internet, satellite, shortwave, and AM/FM stations across the nation. Sponsored by SurvivalistSeeds.com. It gets a little rough from here on. This is Don't Tread on Me with your host, Big John Lipscomb. It's time to awaken from your slumber.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Maxwell Egan again. I am filling in for John Lipscomb, who is still away. So we'll just see what the show winds up to today. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "He who passively accepts evil is as much involved as he who helps perpetuate it." And every time I think on quotes like those, it strengthens me. And it makes me understand and helps me understand why I do what I do. Well, folks, the world is not what it seems, not one bit. And when I say that, I'm not just saying that the system is corrupt and that men behind closed doors are making quiet deals with each other. I'm not merely saying that secret societies exist. What I'm saying is that the world that we live in is not even remotely the way we perceive it to be. Everything that they tell us on the television, everything that they fill our heads full of in the newspapers, it's none of it is based on truth. And if you really look at how the system works that feeds people this information, I talk about this in the big picture and in other films that I've done, that it all basically comes from two sources, which is that there's a news pool that feeds information down to the networks. And this news pool consists of just two sources, one of which owns the other, and the main source is wholly owned by the Rothschild family. So basically you just get the Rothschilds' version of the news. And because of this, you and me and everybody are quite literally living in a matrix. We're living in a matrix and we're being used to generate energy. Only we're not living in little pods and we're hooked up to a power grid the way they do in the movie. We don't need to, because this reality exists in a quantum field and we don't need wires to be hooked up to it or to interface with it. We're hooked up with it and to each other 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And for every single instant of our lives, simply because we exist, we're hooked up to it. That's the way it works. And we're interfacing with it every single instant of our lives through our beliefs and our emotions and our intentions. That's the way it works. That's the way the energy flows, and the whole thing is about that. I talk about this a lot, that the whole thing is about energy, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, sometimes, I just feel like running down the street and grabbing people and hugging them and saying, "Hey, look, don't worry about anything ever, because this is all completely illusionary, and we make it what we want it to be, and we can change it any time we want." But of course, there would be men in white coats come to lock me up if I went and said that to people. So it's very hard to explain it to people. And yet, everything about this reality and the system under which we live is completely and utterly false. And it's the system itself that's the key to it all. It keeps you locked on this ever-rotating treadmill going around and around and around and around, involved in an utterly mindless pursuits, a collection of all of these trinkets and things you don't need, and working at completely unnecessary tasks and jobs that are completely unnecessary. Well, it feeds from your energy in the process, and it's solely through people's compliance with this system and their willingness to embrace the false reality created by the system itself that the system is able to function. It's incredible the way it works. It's a self-balancing thing. It's a self-perpetuating event that we all have to participate in for it to even happen. And the only reason it exists is because we let it exist. It's also due to our unwillingness to look within ourselves. Though it's very hard to find the time to do that, isn't it? I mean, simply because the system doesn't allow it. It's been very cleverly designed, and it keeps you busy all the time. It just doesn't let you look within yourself. It keeps you busy, worried about things, worried about the war, worried about the price of oil, oh dear, the economy's going to collapse. They keep you completely caught up paying unnecessary bills and worrying about the collecting of paper. It's truly ludicrous. It's truly ludicrous. And you only need the system because it's there. Like, for example, last week I was talking to you about the legal system and maritime admiralty law and all of the stuff. Well, this maritime admiralty law applies to every single aspect of your life. And I don't know whether I made it very clear, but a lot of what I was saying, I was parroting a talk that was given by someone who we shall call Agent J, a talk of which is actually posted on my website, thecrowhouse.com. It's called The Strawman Illusion. You might want to go and have a listen to that. I'm actually going to try to have Agent J on the show hopefully next week. I can't promise at this stage. I'm still trying to work it all out. But he also talks about, and it's also well known, that the nature of transport, okay? If you think of maritime admiralty law and this system that we live in, think of the nature of transport, right? And why you need a driver's license. You only need a driver's license to drive your car if the car is being used for a commercial activity, right? So, excuse me, what they do is they create the corporate entity that is you on your driver's license, the Mr. John Doe in capital letters. You go and apply for a license, and you get this license that says, I am Mr. John Doe. So that is a corporate entity. That is a corporate entity. It's not you, it's a corporate entity. Now, because you have that license, now when you use your car, you're using it for commercial activity because you're transporting this little corporation around with you, this little straw man everywhere you go. You only need a license to drive your car because you have a license. That's the only reason you need it. You see how they do this? It's a self-generating system. I mean, your license is the corporate you, the corporate body that you're transporting around in your car. And again, it's maritime admiralty. You're transversing from port to port. Right? You're transversing the port of your home to the port of the shopping centre. And what you're travelling and the cargo that you are taking on your vessel as you're out on the road, the shipping lane, is your license. That is the corporate you that you're taking with you. So it's quite, they've done all these little tricks. That's the only reason you need a license, you see, because you have a license, which means you need a license. It's quite remarkable the way they've done it. And that's something that you really should think about, because this whole system only functions because we allow them to do this. And I am going to try to get Agent J on the show. And a lot of people have actually been contacting me and asking me about the UCC Form 1 and a few things like that. And after I've had Agent J on the program, we are going to try to organise an information pack, which I will post on thecrowhouse.com, and you'll be able to download that to get step-by-step instructions on how to do this. Because I think it's a pretty important thing for people to do. But I don't want to say too much and tell you to just run out and do what I'm saying, because you've got to be very careful when you do this type of thing. I mean, because one word out of place, and you could very easily give the judge jurisdiction over you, or give a police officer jurisdiction over you, and you're not going to be very happy if you've just gone and pulled all this other stuff on them for the last hour, and they've been trying to gain jurisdiction over you. So you've got to know how to do it in a very concise way. So when I've got that information pack, I will post it on my website. You need have no fear of that, and I will definitely try to have Agent J on the show very, very soon. But that's something to think about anyway. This system, it only works because we let it, and you've got to notice the ritualistic nature of how they do it all, and the little tricks that they use. I mean, it's all a ritual. Everything that's going on is a ritual. All the way they get you to carry all these documents around, and all these little identifying corporate logos that they give you to take everywhere. It's all ritualistic. And what's going on with the wars? That's all ritualistic as well. So you've got to notice the patterns and how they're doing. I mean, this is serious depopulation and control they're talking about here, which is the main plan.